I have just started out, like now. What do I do? This is a great question. I got this question and I want to answer this one because I believe it's a common one. People want to know what to do next. And I'll try to answer some other questions if I have the time, but I'm going to jump right into this first one. I love it. I have just started out. What's the next step? And when I got this question, it was in a sense as if like the person has decided to start, and I imagine they have decided to be a coach, and that's the step they took, because I already talked about setting up your business and then going after the clients, and that's we've already established that that's a big mistake. You have to find the clients and then set up your business. But this question, I have just started out. It means that you have just decided that you want to help clients. You want to be a coach. You want to be in the coaching industry. That's a great question. What's the next step? Actually, the next step is divided into two different steps, two separate steps. I'm going to give you the step 2 and the step 3. The second step would be to understand who you really are. What do you mean who I am? I know who I am. Who you are in terms of a personal brand. You have to go deep into the foundational aspects of your brand. Understand your true self, who you are, and what people see in you, what is being perceived by your audience, and then create this personal brand around that image that you want to show to your audience. And it has to be 100% you, not a brand that you're creating. It has to be you. Obviously, the image that is being seen by your viewers, your audience, your potential clients, it's a brand, it's a personal brand. It's not a person. They're buying from a brand, but it's actually buying from you. We've talked about that in other videos. So you want to understand who you really are. What do you do best? What do you enjoy doing? What is the type of work, the help, the method, the techniques, the tools that you'd like to teach? And what is the results you want to help your clients achieve? That's working on your personal brand. And that's step number 2. And I want to add step number 3. That's going after your ideal client. So you have to understand who you are, and then you go after who you want to serve. And there's a connection there. You're going to create and to enhance and improve and tweak your personal brand so that your ideal client can see that as being the result they want, as being the transformation they're going after. So those are the next few steps, the next couple of steps I would take if I was to get started. And some people say, okay, I'm putting together a website first, and then buy a domain with the name, create the name. I wouldn't go as far as just deciding who you are and who you want to serve. That's first. That's foundational. That's the cornerstones of your business. Personal brand, who you are, and then who you want to serve. Then you build your business. Then you come up with the name. Then you create a website, but you don't really need a website to get started. When I say get started, I mean get clients, 1 or 2 or 3. All you need is understanding. You understand who you are and who you want to serve. Okay, but Jack, I need to contact my potential clients and then, see if it's a good fit and then offer my help. Yes. So you might need to do that online, I imagine. And then you would need a social media profile. That's all you need, like a Facebook profile. You don't need a website. You don't need a fancy name, a logo. You don't need that right now. You just need to make contact with whoever is after the transformation you provide, and then you get started. That's the most important step that you need to take in order to connect and then convert your clients, your potential clients into paying clients. I wouldn't do anything else rather than just focusing on your personal brand. Write down who you want to serve. Write down what is the image that your ideal client needs to see in you in order to really trigger the interest in working with you and having the transformation you provide. That's it. Okay, that's question number one. Now I have question number two here. No specific order, but that's the next one. How to tell compelling stories in my videos. Oh, I love that one. This is my, well, if you know me, if you've been following me, you know that I'm all about storytelling, and I believe in a transformation that the stories can do in a sense where I was actually helping some clients yesterday with the stories that they weren't telling properly. So yes, that's a great question. How do I tell compelling stories? That will make a huge difference in the results you want from your performance, from your videos. So how do I tell compelling stories? First, the first thing to learn is they have to be your stories, not someone else's stories, not a made-up story. It has to be about your experience, something you've lived, an experience that you went through, and then you talk about that. You tell that story, and it has to follow a timeline. A big mistake people make when they tell stories is they talk about what happened the way they remember it without thinking about the story. And then that it doesn't help people understand it, and the audience gets confused. What came first? What's the next? Is there a timeline here? So pay attention to the timeline and then tell the events as they happened. And then you finish the story. It has to be something that taught you a lesson. That's how you're gonna tell compelling stories. Things that would get people interested in knowing what happened after. So you start with the date. Back in 1989, I was having a problem with my brother, or we were discussing something, blah, 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 blah. And then you tell the story, everything that happened, and it has to be an isolated event. You won't tell a story that lasted for years and have the same impact as if you're telling a story that happened for 5 minutes, maybe a phone call that you received. Yesterday I got a phone call and someone said so and so, blah, 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 and then I realized, and that's the story. You got a phone call, someone paid you a compliment, someone criticized you, and then the way you reacted is the lesson. And then I learned that sometimes we react because of blah, 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 blah. That's why you're telling that story. So an isolated event, it has to follow a proper timeline, and it has to be a story about you, something you lived. And then you leave the lesson. So another mistake people make when they're telling stories is that they just tell the story and they don't finish with the lesson. People are not interested in some story that didn't teach you anything. It loses its value. So maybe the story is amazing. It's very entertaining. Okay, that's cool. Wow. So they're listening to you, they're paying attention, and then the story ends, and that's it. And they go like, really? They are supposed to learn something from you in the end. So you tell a story, you finish the story, you pause for a second, let them wonder, why is he telling me this story? Let them think, okay, I get it, it's a nice story, but why? That's when you say, why am I telling you this story? Or why am I telling you this? Why am I sharing this with you? And then they'll go, yes, why? And then you leave the lesson, because it's important for us to understand da 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 da, because we have to be actively conscious about da 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 da, and then you leave the lesson, the thing that you learned from that experience. That's how you tell a story with value. That's one mistake I mentioned that people make. And the other mistake is to leave a lesson without a story. You don't want to do that. If you tell people, hey, we all should start doing this from now on and pay more attention to this and that, and they'll be like, who the hell are you to tell me what to do? That doesn't work either. That's the other mistake people make. They tell the lesson without the story. Or, the first mistake, they tell the story without the lesson. They have to be delivered together. A story followed by a lesson. That's how you're going to tell compelling stories and get your viewers, your audience, to really understand what you have to share. When you tell a story, you're showing the humanity, the authenticity that you have. They'll see you as one of their own, and they will lower their guards. So they'll let down their guards, and that's how you start teaching, and they'll be actively listening to you. Have you ever felt like you can't get your message heard? I mean, you have this amazing transformation and excellent work, but that's not enough. And I think you've already figured that out. Not enough because you don't know how to sell. So it's no use having a good service, right? No, you don't need to know how to sell or anything about marketing at all. You simply need a process that helps you in 3 steps. A strategy that helps you find your ideal client, all the hows and the wheres and the whens. Then a process that will help you connect and understand how to build a relationship with your prospects. And then finally, a process to convert. So when you go through all these steps and understand how to do each one of them, sales will come naturally. And then you might be wondering now, okay, Jack, but how can I learn all that? I want to walk you through each one of those 3 steps in this free mini-series called The 3, which will start live on November the 8th. Question number 2. Okay, moving on. This is a great one. How can I find prospects on social or Facebook groups? So maybe 2 questions here. How can I find prospects on social or Facebook groups? Let's start with Facebook groups. I'm guessing that when you say Facebook groups, it means other people, not your own Facebook group. So all the Facebook groups that you participate as a member. You can find prospects there. It's an easy way. It's not easy, let me correct myself, not easy, but it can be simple. Thousands of people hanging out in Facebook groups. Half of them are trying to sell their own stuff. And the others are just, researching. And some are really, really trying to learn and to benefit from more experienced coaches and entrepreneurs. That's when you come in, trying to provide value. Some people like to get new leads by asking some questions in Facebook groups. How do you do this or that? What was the number one obstacle that you had when you started out? What were the questions that would get people interested in participating because there are maybe polarizing, maybe polemic subjects, but they're more trying to get you as a lead. And that's not your goal here. Your goal is to find potential clients. So you don't want to participate and then trying to get those the people who ask those questions as your potential clients. It's possible, but you don't want to do that either. It's possible, but I don't like that way. I prefer to answer some questions providing value, not asking anything in return. I think that's the most appropriate way of connecting with potential clients. That's the way, that's how I do it. I answer the question and I start a conversation, and I don't send a friend request to that person without breaking the ice, without having like 2 or 3 replies involved in a proper conversation through replies. That's how I do it. And then I send a friend request, start a conversation with them privately, and then we move to a different topic, building the relationship in the messenger, in private chats. But when you do it in Facebook groups, you can do like that, replying, answering the questions. Or there's another thing I did in the past, and I still do it sometimes. When you see a question that you, oh my God, I know how to answer that. It's a long answer. I don't want to write like a long message here, because maybe it's gonna be boring. People won't get interested. They'll be bored. So I write, when I see a question like that, like say for example, someone asks, how do I tell a compelling story? How to work with storytelling? And that's like a big topic I teach, and I love it, and I know so much about it. I want to talk a lot about that. So I write a blog article. I write an article about that, like maybe like a page long article about answering that very question. I do that, and then I post the link to that article in the thread. Hey, I actually wrote an article about that very topic. Crazy. And it's here. You can read it. That way, you get people to visit your website. If you have a website, a blog, or something that you want people to visit, you get people to visit your website. If you don't have a website, if you don't have a blog, you can post something in your personal profile answering that very question, and then you get people to visit your profile, which is what you want if you're building a relationship with someone interested in the transformation you provide in your services. You just write a post, say, so I hear some people asking this question, I'm going to answer that. And then you, boom, answer that question in a post in your Facebook profile, in your platform, on your social, say Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever you're using to build relationships with your potential clients. And then you paste that link, your profile, say, hey, I answered that question in this post here. Maybe it could be of some help to you. And that's not going to get banned. You're not going to get kicked out of the group, because you're actually providing the answer to it, not promoting your website. And they don't permit, they don't allow sharing links. So you might get in trouble if you share your website. But if you share a link to the answer to that question that was asked, you're actually providing value and helping that person in the group by answering the question that was asked. Great thing, a good strategy. It works, and you're just helping them. You actually went out of your way to sit down and write an article or a post answering that question, because you really want to help. So people will be appreciative of that intention. So that's another question, and I hope those were of value, and I'll see you in the next one.